Good morning, everybody. Excuse my scruffy look. It's Saturday morning, after all, and my time, 10 o'clock. But I'm going to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about where we are and where you're going as we begin to prepare for week 3. I've just finished reading through your discussions around the question of the role, the life, the meaning, and purpose of Oscar Romero, and thought I need to spend a little bit of time this morning talking to you about some of that and what to look forward to. I am enjoying that conversation that I get to have with you about Oscar Romero himself and the film, the interpretation of Romero that the film gives us. Each time I teach this class and explore his life, the life of Beckett and Henry and what comes next, through the thoughtful work that you students do, and the questions you raise, especially the questions you raise, I'm once again impressed by both the importance and difficulty, the downright demanding challenge of living a life that is honest and vulnerable in a world that seems to affirm other values and often seems to want to end the existence of persons who live life well and fully. Thanks for your good, thoughtful work. Some of you have wondered about Romero's legacy, as I have. Did he really make any difference? What kind of difference did he make? Here we are some 35 plus years later, and what difference did he make? On the one hand, frankly, it's as if Romero never existed. You read headlines like El Salvador is the murder capital of the world. That's from the New York Times. And then also from the Times, El Salvador's new president faces gangs, poverty, and instability. Doesn't sound like much has changed, does it? Doesn't sound like Romero made any difference. Did he have any lasting impact? I think that the impact of saints is often kind of hard to measure, especially because their impact seems greater later and maybe even elsewhere than when and where they lived. But if you'd like to know more about his legacy, I found a really excellent compilation of sources on the internet, and I've posted the URL for that on Moodle for week 2. It's a source entitled Archbishop Romero, A Legacy of Struggle for Social Justice. There's a vast number of resources there. You may not have time to look at it now, but perhaps sometime in the future you would if you'd like to know. Well, as I noted, we're rapidly approaching week 3. So let me say a few words about some of the assignments for week 3. Hump week, halfway done, starting next week. There is a kind of a shift in the movie, the kind of movie that we're watching this week. We might characterize Beckett and Romero as biopics, stories about persons and how they live their lives and the impact of their lives and the cauldron of their lives. They're real persons caught up in real demanding situations at the heart of which are significant moral dilemmas that, in the case of 2 of these men, have cost them their lives. This time we move to a fantasy world, the world of hobbits and wizards and fairies and elves and dwarves and mysterious, powerful rings. We move to the world of the Fellowship of the Ring from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's a kind of surprising shift from reality to myth, but this film was chosen because it calls attention to some of the realities that are more hinted at in the other 2. Yes, there's a hero in this film, but there are also heroes in the Fellowship of the Ring. Many of them who join together to accomplish a deed of such magnitude that the future depends, well, really nearly entirely upon its success or failure. It allows us to address some of the important same questions that we've been talking about with Beckett and Romero, but from a different perspective. Many of you, if not all of you, have probably already seen this film, but I encourage you to watch it again and watch it with this sense of context with Beckett and Romero and now the unlikely Frodo alongside those great historical personages. Okay, that's the first comment. Second comment, we move from the world of philosophy, Plato and Aristotle, kingpins in the world of philosophy, the two fathers of Western philosophy. We move from them to the world of, we might say, biblical theology, to the worlds of Moses and Jesus. Again, I encourage you to read the directions very carefully. This time you're dealing mostly with what we might call original texts. You will need to access passages from both the Old and New Testaments out of the Christian Bible. And the links to those outside sources, to other outside sources, will help you to get the bigger picture for both of them, some context for what's going on. There are some real similarities between the two, between Moses and Jesus, but there are also important differences. There's also personal questions that ask you which of the worldviews presented here in Moses and Jesus is closest to your own. And don't forget the importance of explaining why you think what you think, or why you hold the conclusions that you hold. Finally, life mapping continues. We shift from that basic life events map. We shift now to putting another layer on that map. This time the focus is on relationships. The directions on this are fairly clear, so you'll want to read them carefully. There are also options about how you might want to present this work. I really encourage you to think about the key persons. That's what the purpose of this part of life mapping is. To think about those key persons in your life who, and I emphasize, for better and worse, make a huge difference in how you choose to live your life. They may be teachers or pastors, parents or siblings, bosses or coworkers, friends that you met in the first grade and have somehow managed to stay close to all these years. Those long life friends that have formed a connection with you that continues remarkably to this day. It might be neighbors. They might just be buddies, pals, friends, people you like to go out with. What this map is about is identifying and reflecting on the persons in our lives who have had the greatest influence on me, okay? For better and worse, I emphasize again. Look at the big perspective questions and the directions for your reflective essay. These will help you do the important work of self-reflection, which is really what the life mapping is all about, which I call the so what questions. At this recording, I haven't yet gotten into or read any of your first efforts at life mapping. Due date isn't really until tomorrow at midnight, and I like to hold off till I have a whole passel in front of me. But I hope you're finding this process to be valuable on your own journey. I am eager to see and read your work. I'll begin on that probably on Monday. To follow you on your life journey, or at least that part of your life journey you want me to know about. And by the way, thanks again for your engagement and blessings on your journey. I'll see you again soon.